Passt.
It's my
Hello,
English.
hello, Christoph. How are you?
Hi, Aldo. I'm fine. Hi, Katja.
Is it possible that you got a haircut?
Pardon?
Is it possible that you got a haircut? It's shorter than normal, no?
This is my Corona style.
Yeah, we all have this.
Lockdown year 2.
Well, we're having your Sauvignon Blanc Clausen, and it's obviously not a big secret that I'm a huge fan for almost 2 decades, more than 2 decades of your wines. I mean, back in the day, your father made it. And Clausen became very particular to me. Can you give us a little detail about Styria, where you're from? Because in America, when people talk about Austrian wine, they obviously know about Burgenland, they know about Lower Austria and Vienna. And I've noticed often, Styria was kind of the fifth wheel on the car. Is that fair to say? I don't want to be provocative. It's just I've noticed this.
It's extremely provocative.
Yeah.
No, it's you're true. It's the fifth wheel. It was the fifth wheel on the wagon. That is because we are quite far away from Vienna and quite far away from almost anything you know about Austria. It's far in the south, close to the Slovenian border. It's about 3 hours south of Vienna, between the Alps and the Mediterranean Sea, which means 1 hour away the Alps start, so cool climate and alpine climate, and 2.5 hours south there's the Mediterranean Sea, so that's also not far away, but that's where we're getting the warmth and the rain from. So
that's why your area is so green and so luscious.
That's true. It's like, rolling hills, very green. It's raining a lot. That's kind of a problem, but that makes at least a beautiful view.
Mm-hmm. So I spent the last summer a couple of times in Styria, and I have to admit, to me, this is one of the most beautiful regions. Austrians know it, but you don't find many international. I barely heard any English speakers there.
That's true. Yeah. You also barely find any German speakers there.
Yeah, it's purely Austrian focused, right? It's really bizarre to see this because this doesn't happen in the Wachau. This doesn't even happen in the Burgenland.
Yeah. We also don't get many tourists, because it's, no big city is close to it, so it's an adventure.
But I went to southern Styria also, and it was very hard to get even a room there. It was so packed. But that was probably Corona related, that no one wanted to travel outside of it.
Yes, definitely. We do get some tourists, but this year with Corona was crazy. People wanted to stay inside, and that was good for us.
Yeah, yeah. Tell us about, you obviously, Sauvignon Blanc is actually a main flagship wine or grape, no? Of course, you have Morillon, meaning Chardonnay. You have Gelbe Muscatel, you have Traminer. You have an excellent Pinot Gris.
Thank you. Try my best.
Yeah. Why do you focus so strong, or where do you think Sauvignon Blanc has such an impact for Styria?
All those varieties were introduced to us about 200 years ago from an archduke. He wanted to bring up Styrian winemaking that was lying down after several wars. And over 200 years, we realized the variety of Sauvignon Blanc can kind of picture our region the best. It's not that we also tried other varieties, and we did find out that Sauvignon kind of had the biggest consistency. And maybe my father's generation and his colleagues like Manfred Dement and Polz and Sattler, they realized 30 years ago, Sauvignon is the variety that makes the best, that gives the best results. And until today, it is still that, I mean, there's Chardonnay, there's Pinot Gris, there's Muscatella, but the consistency and the quality and maybe the uniqueness of Steiermark is best shown through Sauvignon Blanc, at least in our opinion.
And what makes you say that? What is your foundation to say that?
The foundation. Well, we are in the 3rd generation, and since 3 generations, we do nothing else than trying to make good wine. And we also realized in our part of Styria that Sauvignon Blanc is, not probably only the most difficult variety to grow in our area, but well, maybe the most rewarding variety.
Well, Sauvignon Blanc internationally has kind of the claim to fame. It became everyone's darling because it's so aromatic. It's often loud. It became very commercially successful, and sometimes almost it lost its soul a little bit. However, where do you see the role for Styria in the international wine market? What makes it so special?
You're totally true that all over this planet Sauvignon Blanc is grown. It's become a huge commercial success, also in the newer winemaking countries. And when we travel with our Sauvignon Blanc to different places, like to New York, for example, there's no reason to land there with another example of Sauvignon Blanc. You know, there's absolutely, it's a bloody waste of time. And if you want to sell Sauvignon Blanc abroad, like very far away from where I am, it has to be, how can I say, it has to make sense. If it's the 100 copy of the copy, it's totally useless. You know, we have steep hills, we have hail, we have lots of handwork, we work in organic. You know, producing wine is expensive and risky. So you know, it's not cheap. You know, it's not unique. It's not autochtone. It's ridiculous actually. But you know, it's been grown here for 200 years. It's become unique to us. And yes, over the last 2 generations, probably we not created, but we kind of established a unique style of Sauvignon Blanc that, thank God, cannot be found somewhere else. And I'm not rating this, you know, it's just unique. It doesn't mean it's any better or worse, but we kind of became happy with it, to be honest.
Now, I know you're a very well-traveled person and you're a very open-minded person, but also I think that's part of what you inherited from your father. You're a very critical thinking person too. And of course, when you look, where do you see Styrian Sauvignon Blanc in context of New Zealand or Sancerre or Puy-Fumé, which are much more famous, no? Or often benchmarks for people?
Well, since there are definitely benchmarks that we are thinking of and looking after. If I have to make it quick, it's between kind of old and new world. You know, I mean, we are all this kind of old world style drinkers, which means, you know, terroir is key, minerality is key, complexity, length, and subtleness, elegance. That's the key. But I don't want to say anything bad about, you know, these newer kind of winemaking countries, because I traveled there and, you know, I drank wine from 120-year-old Syrah wines. You know, that's crazy, or Sauvignon Blanc wine. So that's a little hard to say. But to be honest, around the Alps, like Alto Adige, Südtirol, is a little bit closer to Steiermark. Otherwise, we're big fans, of course, of, you know, the area around Loire, you know, Sancerre, and it doesn't always have to be Sauvignon Blanc, it can also be Chenin Blanc or something like that. But that's maybe, you know, regions where people have done something for hundreds of years and have probably perfectionized it, and they are relying on this one variety on this particular place. And this is what we want to do also. I mean, this is the greatest thing you can achieve as a winemaker.
How can you compare a Styrian Sauvignon Blanc to a Sauvignon, let's say, from Sancerre? What do you feel is the difference?
Well, I'm being honest. I love Sauvignon Blanc from Sancerre. I love the you know, the focus and the straightness and the herbal touch and the acidity, the minerality, of course. Steiermark is going that direction, but we have always a little bit more, and don't get me wrong, charm, which means it's kind of a juicy acidity and a little bit more fruit, like aromatic fruit, natural aromatic fruit, no bullshit fruit. That makes it maybe a little less serious. But I am a big fan of serious Sauvignon, and we in Steiermark are very big fans of serious Sauvignon. But you know, a little lightness to it has never done any harm.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference. The core is always mineralic, I would say, but there's always some lighter around it. You know, something not easy, but maybe slightly refreshing and animating.
I've interviewed you last summer, and you described it actually as very funny because I came back to my notes, and you said it's very focused, but it has maybe a little bit more flesh to the bone.
Now I remember.
And I thought that's such a straight and probably the best analogy to put it, because I often in very simple words describe it between a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc and something between a Sancerre. It floats there in between, right? Obviously,
Right.
it's a generalization, but with layers. Now, you make obviously a couple of styles, a couple of Sauvignon Blancs, and one wine we want to highlight is the Clausen Vineyard. And I show quickly or share quickly the screen, just so we can look into this. So this is just, I mean, looking into this, here would be Straden, right? When I zoom in, that's your hometown.
Yes, and the back, yeah.
How come there's 4 churches?
Oh God.
This doesn't seem like a major capital that you need 4 churches.
Well, it has been, like, you know, hundreds of years ago. It's the opposite now.
It's the opposite now. Okay,
you have to imagine, like, just around the corner, you know, there was the Iron Curtain for lots of years, and it's like the corner of Hungary, Austria, and Slovenia. So, you know, there's no airport and there's no highway. There's nothing actually.
4 churches.
4 churches. Well, there's 1 church for each guy living in Straden.
I see. So so your winery is basically right here, right?
Yes.
This would be located here, and tons of hills here. No, it's luscious green, and this is the vineyard. This is the vineyard Clausen.
Yes.
And it looks very steep here, no?
Yeah, you know, a little bit from afar, the hills are all like rolling hills, but actually where the vineyards are planted, they are always the steepest sides, because the steepest sides always have the poorest soil. That's like the terroir in our area. So the other side of the Clausen, the back that looks to the west, is like rounded. But the east side of the Clausen is like a wave. They look like waves. And the steeper side is always the vineyard side.
Wow. How steep is it here? Because this looks, I mean, photos are always tricky, but this looks rather steep here, especially in this slope. That's
around 45 to 50%. And going to the back, it's up to 65, sometimes 70%, which is just manageable.
But that's like Mosel style. I mean,
Yes.
Those are the steepest vineyards in the world, no?
Yeah, Mosel is still a little bit steeper. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, you got to give them that.
Yeah.
No problem. But it's close to that, yeah.
Yeah. Phew. And those are very funny looking tractors. How can you? I mean, I looked at it first and I thought, well, I grew up in Austria, but I've never seen a tractor like that.
Well, we need special tractors. I mean, you know, everything on the vine is done by hand, but we can use tractors, for example, for spraying. I mean, we do organic spraying, but that still means you have to spray. And we can use it also for mow the grass, because it's raining so much and it's growing a lot. We have to use that. And because of the steepness, the tractors are very special, and they look a little like these moon landing buggies, you know, from the 60s, from the 70s. So they have 4 very big wheels and a very, very low sitting person, so that they don't topple over. It's very dangerous, actually.
It's basically more for toppling over, no?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And
how many exits do you have here?
Oh, this is well, this is not funny, but first of all, nowadays all the tractors have cabins and special security tires, and also like a hook. We've got an emergency brake where, like, how can I say, eine Steilhangbremse auf Deutsch. That's a brake that
it's an emergency brake when it's super steep.
Yeah, and that shoots like a rocket into the soil so that the tractor is stopped. And normally the average is like one bad winemaker a year. You know a lot of winemaking names you probably don't know, but almost every winemaking family has lost a son within the last, let's say, 50 to 70 years through tractor driving.
Wow.
I'm not kidding you. Like maybe there was one more Chap's son, from village. His brother had an accident and died, and so on and so on. There's like, it's not funny, but that's
I mean, I walked with Ewald Chepe up into X-Vero 2 and X-Vero 3, and I said, poof.
Yeah.
I mean, this is steep, huh? And I'm from Tyrol. I'm used to steep.
Yeah. It's the guys who are driving the tractor, if we're doing it ourselves, everybody has got his own vineyard. And if you're not good enough, you're not allowed to drive certain vineyards. And since all these accidents, the tractors have become better, and these emergency brakes have been installed everywhere. So nowadays it's a little bit more safe. Yeah. But actually we're still waiting for autonomous tractors and so on, like it's just really, it's too dangerous. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it looks very beautiful. When you go into these vineyards, I always feel it's absolutely fantastic. It's green, it looks healthy, everything speaks to you. Mm-hmm. And I think the food scene in Styria is also quite good.
Yes.
You can eat quite well there. Again, nothing what you'd think. And to me, I drive pretty much anywhere for good food and wine.
Yeah.
So that's why it caught my attention. What catches me on your Sauvignon Blanc is always kind of, you look always for purity in the fruit.
Yes.
And that's part of it. I mean, you're probably sick and tired of talking about it, but because I always bring it up, is you walk with your vineyards with a coffee spoon. And I saw this the first time when your father came out of the vineyard. I think it was in 1998. Yes. I think that was one of the wet years. I said, I barely keep up with it.
A warm and wet year, and normally the fungus pressure is very high, and botrytis it comes very easily, especially when it's like 20 degrees and raining. And we did not know what to do anymore. And of course, everything is hand harvested anyway in little bins, but that didn't help. So he came up with this spoon method, like a coffee spoon. And I'm not kidding you. It's like, the one side of the spoon is the small part where you can flick out single berry. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the other side, like the spoon itself, or what? The round thing, mm-hmm. You can spoon out, 3 or 4 or 5 berries at once. And with this method, he was able to get out berries without damaging the neighbor berries. Mm-hmm. Because normally you have to cut off, half of it or quarter of it, and you're losing so much crop, and we already lost so much, I mean, yields is very low without botrytis, and with botrytis it's even worse. And this was absolutely ridiculous work, it's like devastating. It's so expensive, but it helped. And, I still carry some 98s in my cellar, and it worked out. And later on, in 2010, I was alone, after taking over, and I thought, oh God, no, not another year like this. And then I remembered the spoon method, and yes, we 45 people with one spoon, we spooned around in the vineyards. It was ridiculous. And the last year was 2014, the Muscatella, the same thing, it took us, I think, 45 people, 1 hectare a day, and we did not harvest, it's just cleaning. So when the hail comes and damages the berries, the grapes are not ripe yet. But if you keep the damaged berries on the grape, it damages the other ones, of course. So we went through just 2 days after the hail and rain and spooned them out. And then we could wait another, 10 to 14 days until the rest was getting ripe again. This is one of the most erniedrigend heißt es auf Deutsch.
Humiliating.
Exactly, humiliating. This is you know, and you're doing it yourself because you don't want to do this to other people.
Yeah. And you don't see an end of it, no? I mean, 45 people, 1 hectare, that's 2.5 acres for
Yes.
one day, no? I mean, that's
Well,
like insane.
You have one vine and there's like 8 to 10 grapes, and it's like you're starting with 1 grape on the vine, and an hour later you're still on the same vine. it's really well, it happens not often, but
Yeah, thankfully.
if it does, then you have to do something.
You talked about low yields. What does low yield mean to you?
We have
Because when I go to Champagne, when they complain about low yields, it's a very different story than.
I totally understand, so that you can compare it. It's 4,000 to 4,500 kilograms per hectare, which is like 30 to 32 hectoliters. I'm not talking about top range only or something. This is average yield over a period of 10 years. But to be honest, poor soil, organic farming, high density planting, and you 2 or 3 times hail a year or lots of rain and selection process. So I think without that it could be a little bit higher, but I mean 4,500 average, that's not a lot.
Yeah, no.
Less also in some cases.
Since, I mean, I don't want to take too much time away from you, but can you give us a quick rundown of Gelbe Muscatelle, the Pinot Gris, or the Grauburgunder, how you call it, and the Traminer, before we shift back again?
In terms of varieties, or?
Yeah, just what you focus on, what is important for you there, because Pinot Gris is also a variety which can be, everyone thinks of Pinot Grigio, and when you taste both wines next to each other, you don't think they're anywhere related.
That's true. Well, with Pinot Gris, it's actually the same like with Sauvignon Blanc. I mean, it can be grown everywhere, and it can be a very, very boring wine, like a little bit sweet and friendly and nice. And what nice means, it's like boring. But it's the same as with Sauvignon, with a good terroir and poor soil, and this we do long skin contact, as long maceration times. You get some structure and bones and flesh, as we talked before, and a good acidity. I mean, the only positive thing in our area in terms of that rain is that we can harvest very late, and we get natural high acidity and low pH, and that also affects the Pinot Gris. And with the Traminer, it's exactly the same. It's a Rota Traminer, so it's a red variation of the Gewürztraminer. It's exactly the same. It can be a very flowerful, perfumed, also boring wine probably, but with old wines on the right side, it can become something maybe even delicious and fine.
And your Gelbe Muscatelle? Well,
the Gelbe Muscatelle is I mean, we don't have anything autochthone in Steiermark actually, but the Gelbe Muscatelle in that direction, let's say it like this, can be kind of autochthone because it's late ripening. When it's fully ripe, it's between 11.5 and 12% of alcohol. I mean, this is crazy, but excellent, It's got a high aromatic potential, but if it's only aromatic, again, it's boring and obvious. Nobody needs that. So with that Steiermark, juicy acidity, precision, long skin contact, you can make something more serious out of it without losing its, I'd like to say, its sexiness. I mean, it's juicy. It's you drink it liter wise, but it should still be kind of profound.
Yeah, to me, when I sit on the summer on a beach, this would be the wine to go for, because it's crisp, it's fresh, it's aromatic. It pairs superbly well with any kind of fish.
Yeah.
And it's really low in alcohol. I mean, you don't have to worry about anything there.
No, and you drink 2 bottles on a Tuesday.
Yeah, it's literally like that, and you're shocked that the bottle is empty. This happened to me on a plane back over to Austria. This literally happened, and I asked the flight attendant, I said, who's no, people don't really order because they think Muscatelle is always sweet.
Yeah.
And that's the common problem. Going quickly back. Yeah, no, but to me, this is the best summer wine.
Yeah.
Hardly anything beats it.
Yeah.
Going back to our main focus point, Clausen. Can you give us what you do there in the cellar technique?
Mhm.
And what makes Clausen so special? I put in quickly the vineyard again.
Sure. I start with the vineyard again. So the vineyard is facing to the east, which is very important, especially when you are living in a rainy area and when you're farming organic. So the morning sun is drying off the grapes very quickly. And the afternoon sun, which brings the heat, is on the back, towards the west, and we don't have any vines there. So even in warm years, you can get fully ripe grapes without getting overripe. So we're harvesting all the Sauvignon Blanc on one day when it's perfectly ripe, but not overripe, around 12.7 to 13% of alcohol, good and high acidity. And what's important, and you can't see it because everything is green here, it's got poor soil underneath, which is important for drainage and for structure. So it's very high in chalk actually, and it's a mixture of limestone and sandstone. Mm-hmm. And after hand picking it, we do long skin contact, which means last year it was 20 hours, so between 20 and let's say 40 hours. So everything is double selected, so no berry, you're talking about of clearness of fruit, that's every year the same, with a spoon or without a spoon. The skin contact means the juice can stay together with the seeds and the skin a little bit longer to get out extra, let's say stuff, structure,
Phenolics.
Phenolics, yeah. And after that, because we have a gravity flow cellar, the juice is running down freely into the fermentation barrels. I've got our traditional sizes 1,000 and 2,000 liter barrels. They are used oak, they're, I don't know, 22, 25 years old. We're big fans of spontaneous fermentation since a very long time now. And that takes, between 4 weeks and 4 months, depending on the year. And then, we are also big fans of long yeast contact. And because we have a very good basic structure, low pH and high acidity, we can stay on the full yeast for at least 12 months without sulfuring, without doing anything.
Oh, wow.
So we have a natural reductivity, I call it. I don't have to do anything. I'm very lucky. And then we rack it, so racking is before the next vintage, so over a period of 12 months. And we're still talking about Sauvignon. This Sauvignon still got, plenty of fruit, even after that treatment or non-treatment. And after that, we keep it on the fine yeast for a few months, and then there's a light sulfuring, and then we bottle it.
Yeah. You don't do any oak treatment there, no?
Only used big oak barrels, like 2,000 liter, but only for the slight oxidation. There's no tannic structure from the oak. That's only from the skins.
Mm-hmm. How do the soils differentiate from here to the Südsteiermark?
Well, the Südsteiermark partly also consists of sedimentary soil. Depends, like Tayment is more chalky, and then you go further to the west, there's another like a gravelly area, just like we have on the Saziani, but you also have schist and
but the Opok?
We don't, in Straten, we don't have much Opok, but close to Straten area, there's a few places with Opok also. So Opok is a very tight and fine sedimentary soil. And in our area, it's more rough because the mix was between a sea and a river. And those two kind of battled in this area. Yeah. So we have partly sea sediments and river sediments from the Alps.
Now, it would be unfair not to mention, not unfair, but it would be a miss not to mention Morphytal. And since I have you on just to close our conversation, Morphytal is a Sauvignon Blanc which really has an international standard in terms of gravitas and power.
Yes. The Morphytal is actually my only vineyard that's got a little bit of a richer soil, a deeper soil, we call it. So it's a more fine sediment, and only 1 meter down the gravel starts. It's a high plateau, so it's not really steep, but it's on top of a hill. and the harvest is often a week later. And you're totally true that the gravitas is a nice word. It's more dense, it's more concentrated also. It's got a little bit more weight and definitely higher complexity. Whereas the Clausen is always more of on the not lighter side, sorry, on the fine side, on the precise side, with also enough density, I think, and structure. But if you want real, complexity and weight, like to be overwhelmed, then it will be the more vital.
I've noticed this because you serve it in Salto Burgundy glasses.
Sorry for that.
No. It's just look. I look at these little details, obviously, and because, and again, it's a generalization. People wouldn't think serving a Sauvignon Blanc in a Burgundy glass, but it gives you a little bit the story, because I know you didn't do this just because you were bored. You had a thought process behind that.
Yes, of course. I remember serving you also the 17 vintage. We bottle after around 1.5 to 2 years, and still after those time in the big barrels, the wines are still very young because of all the structure and acidity and so on. So they're still young, and I like to have some oxygen, especially with the Salto glasses. They get lots of oxygen at the bottom, and then they kind of channel it up. So I think for precise and elegant wines, these glasses are perfect. And I also like the smaller glasses, but they're just simply too small. They don't give enough oxygen in that drinking time. On the other hand, I could have decanted it. We have our own restaurants. My father is decanting everything that's younger than 5 years without even asking someone. That's a general thing he's doing. But it helps the wine actually a little.
Yeah, but your father gets away with murder. He can do anything. He has such a charming guy. He can't be upset with this person. It's amazing to see. And I know him for 20 plus years now. Whenever you see him,
away with everything.
No, but listen, you look at this person and you start smiling because he's such a genuinely kind person. You probably have different opinions on that, and that's fair.
No, I mean, but it was totally different than anybody else's father-son relationship. Totally
yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
I say thank you.
Thanks
for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pass auf.